Welcome to Football Game Plan's FCS Kickoff, presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Mike McCarthy is producer behind the boards. It's week 6 in the FCS, and we're starting to see some teams separate themselves from the rest of the pack, while some are looking like championship caliber as we get ready for a big week in the football championship subdivision. Here's a look at what we have on tap for this episode. In a new partnership with Stats FCS Football, we'll let you know which big matchup in week 6 is our Stats FCS Game of the Week, and we'll break down that ball game as well. We'll also take a look at some of the NFL draft prospects from the FCS that you want to keep an eye on this week. And as always, we'll go coast to coast to break down the big games on the schedule this week in the FCS. But first, let's get things kicked off by taking a look at some of the key storylines heading into week 6 as we go into our 4-minute offense. Don't look now, but the Alcorn State Braves are looking like serious contenders in the SWAC this season. The Braves are coming off a 24-17 victory over Texas Southern and back-to-back wins on the season. We were waiting for a team from the SWAC's East Division to show themselves this year, and it looks to be Alcorn. They nearly beat Florida International and McNeese State this season, losing both contests by 7 points. Running back Delance Turner has been a big reason why Alcorn has had success. The 6'1", 214-pound tailback has posted back-to-back 200-yard efforts, making himself a Walter Payton Award candidate in the process. What an impact head coach Al Bagnoli has had on the Columbia Lions football program. In only his second year at the helm, the Ivy League legend has Columbia off to a 3-0 start for the first time since 1996. Columbia has won in a multitude of ways this year. We've seen them go out and dominate an opponent. We've seen them play a physical defensive game against Wagner. And we just saw last week them come back and beat a very good Princeton team on the road. The Lions' success just shows you the difference coaching can make on a program. And if they can keep this up, Coach Bagnoli could be the front runner for the Eddie Robinson Award as the Coach of the Year, and the Columbia Lions could be in line for their first Ivy League title since 1961. Another team that has been red hot as of late is the team up in Cheney, Washington, that plays on the red turf in eastern Washington. We were questioning what was going on with this Eagles program after the first 2 weeks of the season, as they got lambasted by both Texas Tech and North Dakota State. Now, the Eagles, who averaged 11 points per game over the first 2 weeks, are now averaging 52 points per game, which has resulted in a 3-game winning streak for EWU. Last week versus Sacramento State, quarterback Gage Gubru threw for 447 yards and 5 touchdowns, and it's great that they have gotten off the mat because it sets up a huge Week 6 matchup against another surprise team in the Big Sky Conference in UC Davis. 2 head coaches have done phenomenal jobs this season that should be highlighted, and that's Kevin Callahan of Monmouth and Mark Spear of Western Carolina. Coach Callahan has been the only head coach in Monmouth's football history, which has been 25 years, and has the Hawks 4-1 on the season and playing great on both sides of the ball. Last week, the Hawks dominated a strong Bucknell team in the trenches en route to a convincing 35-13 victory. Coach Spear has his Catamounts playing some great football as well. Western Carolina are 4-1 on the year, 2-0 in the SoCon, and it's been because of their explosive offensive attack. The Catamounts are averaging 41 points per game and are getting great play from 2 stars in running back Detrez Newsome and quarterback Tyree Adams. Western Carolina was a young team last year that now believes they can win and are never out of a ball game, and it'll be great to watch both coaches and their respective teams the rest of the year as they get into the thick of conference play.
I think the FCS gives a student athlete a chance to really develop in the classroom and on the field. And I don't think there's anything that gets in the way of the development of the student athlete. You know, whereas in sometimes other conferences, other levels of play, I think there's some things that could sway a student athlete in a wrong direction here or there. But I think at the FCS level, I think it's all about the student athlete. I think it's all about his development in the classroom and also on the playing field. And it really it keeps your values and your goals right in front of you. And I think there's less things that are going to take you away from those things.
We don't have any upset specials on the slate this week, but there are a few games that have a bit of intrigue to them. We'll learn a lot about these teams as they're quietly trending upward. Looking at the matchup between Furman and Chattanooga, the Paladins are winners of 2 straight games and are getting great play from quarterback Peay Blajowski. The senior quarterback went 17 of 22 for 301 yards and 3 touchdowns last week as the Paladins knocked off East Tennessee State. After back-to-back wins over Colgate and ETSU, the Paladins have 2 winnable games against the Mocs and Keydets of VMI before their homecoming matchup against Mercer. So we'll see if they can keep this up and keep it going and put themselves in contention for an FCS playoff at-large bid. Penn Central Connecticut State is another game of intrigue because both teams, in my opinion at least, are really talented. The Quakers are one of the best teams in the Ivy League and are coming off a very tough loss to Dartmouth. They also boast one of the best wide receivers in the FCS in Justin Watson, who will be matched up against one of the best corners in the FCS in Javon Elmore of Central Connecticut State. The Blue Devils are a team of intrigue because of their recent 2-game winning streak, with the last victory coming off a dominating performance against Sacred Heart, who's normally a perennial power in the Northeast Conference. So, needless to say that this is a strength versus strength battle that is filled with big matchups across the board and one that could propel a team in the right direction the rest of the way. And keep an eye on the St. Francis Presbyterian game as the Red Flash are coming off an outstanding defensive performance against the Liberty Flames. And although the final score says otherwise, the Presbyterian Blue Holes were in that ball game late against Wofford before giving up a big play. And we know the Blue Holes play a disciplined game and does a great job of not beating themselves, which will match wits with the Red Flash, who look like a team that can make a serious run in the playoffs this season. And finally, keep an eye on the North Dakota State Bison Indiana State Sycamore ball game. North Dakota State is always the cream of the crop in the FCS and in the Missouri Valley Conference as well. But Indiana State, despite their 0-4 record, they're a team that have lost close games all throughout the season except the Tennessee ball game, which is an obvious one because that's an SEC opponent. But every other game that involves an FCS opponent, Indiana State has lost a close one. So this one may be closer than people think, which is why it's a game of intrigue.
I think that the main reason to choose HBCU is for the family atmosphere. The guys are going to get the core values that their parents taught them, that their family members tried to raise them. You'll have a close-knit atmosphere. You'll actually have guys that care about you as a person. So I think that's the main reason for choosing the HBCU.
The FCS is always well stocked with pro-level talent, and here's a look at some of that talent and their matchups this week in our FCS NFL Draft Prospect Watch. Tremont Smith of Central Arkansas has really good size to skill ratio. He shows the ability to play with length, but has the quicks and bursts of a guy that's 5'8". When you add in the fact that he has terrific ball skills and the ability to add value in the special teams department, there's no surprise why Smith will garner a lot of attention from NFL scouts. I was on the Monmouth Bucknell broadcast last week and came away highly impressed with center Alex Thompson. The 6'4", 300-pound senior offensive lineman gave Bucknell's defensive tackle Abdullah Anderson all he could handle last week. Thompson is extremely strong in a running game and could easily project as both a center and a guard at the next level. It's time to go coast to coast and preview some of the big games this week, and we'll start in the Northeast with a big one in the Ivy League as Yale takes on Dartmouth. This will be a really good game as you'll have a strength versus strength battle between Yale's offense and Dartmouth's defense, and Dartmouth will put a lot of pressure on quarterback Kurt Rawlins and make him beat them throwing the football, and I believe the game plan is to take away their ground game to make sure that happens. Offensively, the Big Green have to get off to a great start, something that has avoided them this season. Yale is interested in making this game a track meet, and Dartmouth can't allow that to happen. I like the Big Green in this ball game. When you have a great offense going up against a great defense, you always want to side with defense, and that's where the Big Green will win in a tight one. The Columbia Lions travel upstate to take on the Marist Red Foxes, and I've been impressed with Lions quarterback Anders Hill, who proved to be the biggest reason why they were able to knock off Princeton last week because of his precision passing. It's been defense, special teams, and efficient offense for the Lions so far, and if their offense can start to catch fire, they could be a real problem in the Ivy League this season. Marist has proven that they can play any type of game, and I'm a big fan of their defense as they do a great job of turning the ball over. They'll need that consistent effort this week against Columbia and challenge their offense to continue to make plays in the passing game. Offensively, the Red Foxes have to not make it easy for the Lions by protecting the football, and I expect a heavy dose of running back Marcellus Calhoun in this ball game, but I don't think it'll be enough. I like Columbia. Staying in the Northeast as we travel to Arthur Rooney Field as Duquesne plays host to Wagner, and I feel like this is a pivotal game for both teams, a fork in the road type of a game. The key in this ball game will be the Seahawks' rushing attack. Their offense found their way against Lehigh last week, forcing 5 Brad Mays interceptions, but the bigger story was that their running game was able to close things out. They'll also get a heavy dose of that from the Duquesne Dukes as well. With their running game, the Dukes have shown the ability to light up the scoreboard, but their defense isn't the same stout group as it was last year and has been their bugaboo so far this season. I like Wagner to go into Pittsburgh and grab a conference win. This is going to be one of the most watched games of the weekend as Jacksonville State travels to play a confident Austin Peay squad. Jacksonville State is on a roll and they now look like the Gamecock squad that could be a serious contender to get to Frisco, Texas. I still have concerns about their passing game. Now where they are good is on the ground with Rock Thomas running the football. Austin Peay is phenomenal defensively and are built the same way philosophically as are the Gamecocks. They hang their hats on their ground game. This game will come down to which quarterback, Javon Craig of Austin Peay or Bryant Horn of Jacksonville State, can make enough plays in the passing game to keep their offense on pace. I will side with the Gamecocks in this one. Experience is everything, and I think defensively they'll be able to rise to the occasion and win a tight one. Pivotal game in the MEAC between North Carolina Central and Howard. The Eagles look to be solid defensively, but has to find ways to sustain drives on offense. It's been a lot of self-inflicted wounds for Central so far this season. They have been able to overcome them, but they can't afford a slow start against Howard. The Bison are explosive offensively and tend to get out of the blocks pretty quickly. We've seen their defense start to stabilize a couple of weeks ago against a good Bethune-Cookman team. Was that the trend or an aberration? We shall see. I think their offense will hit a roadblock, this week against Central. Look for a low-scoring game with the Eagles going on the road and getting a victory. A big battle in the Big Sky between Eastern Washington and UC Davis. The Eagles defense has to be able to stop the bleeding as they've been a weak spot all season long, and it's good that their offense has gotten it going. Otherwise, they could be staring at an 0-5 record so far in the season. The formula is simple for the Aggies: don't turn the ball over. So far this season, we've seen them operate with good balance and efficiency. Defensively, we'll learn a lot about their secondary in this ball game, and this is probably the best passing game that they've faced all season long. UC Davis has to also get better at maximizing their touchdown opportunities inside the red zone. This is another game featuring a young team that's starting to believe that it can win. I think we'll see them do a great job of playing the possession game against the Eagles. I like the Aggies. We have a CAA matchup between Maine and Villanova, and the Black Bears' success or failure is tied to their ability to avoid the costly mistake. Untimely turnovers put a solid defense in bad situations in their 2 losses. They have a terrific running back in Josh Mack, but they have to get more consistent play from quarterback Craig Ferguson. They face a Villanova team that is coming off a conference victory over Towson, and the Wildcats still have the same blueprint for success: strong line of scrimmage play and opportunistic defense. They have to do a better job on third downs in this game or they'll be in trouble against Maine. I think special teams will be the biggest key in this one, as both teams will try to keep it close to the vest with their rushing attack. I'll give the slight edge to Villanova at home. We should see a high-scoring affair in this ballgame as the Grizzlies make the trip up north to Pocatello, Idaho to face the Bengals. I love what I'm seeing from Montana's offensive attack. Once again, they spread the field and they get a lot of people involved. Running back Jeremy Calhoun and wide receiver Jerry Lewis McGee are dynamic playmakers. Defensively, they'll have their hands full with a Bengal offense that's equally as explosive. Quarterback Tanner Gweller has played some great ball this season, tossing over 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. And I just want to know if either defense will show up in this one. Now, watch, since I said that, we'll get a defensive slugfest, but it's a Big Sky Conference, so I highly doubt it. I like Montana in this ball game. The Bengals have had issues stopping the run all season long, and I think the Grizz will go that route and win the game. It's the battle of the Piney Woods as Sam Houston State and Stephen F. Austin meet up. The Bearcats are coming off an upset loss to Central Arkansas after an uncharacteristic performance by their offense with the turnovers. In this ball game versus the Lumberjacks, is about eliminating self-inflicted mistakes and make the first quarter all about maximizing possessions and putting the game away. It's easier said than done because I like the scrappiness of the Stephen F. Austin squad. The Jacks can put up points, although they didn't show it last week in a shutout loss to McNeese State. I wouldn't count them out completely because of that, and also because it's a rivalry game. All of that being said, I have a hard time seeing Sam Houston State allowing one loss to become two. I like the Bearcats. We have a huge showdown at Gibbs Stadium as Western Carolina and Wofford meet up in a battle between the two top teams in the SoCon. This game will simply come down to the Catamounts defense against the option of Wofford. It's as simple as alignment, assignment, and execution. The Terriers defense will also be put to the test as well, as they have to defend the most potent 1-2 punch in the SoCon and quarterback Tyree Adams and running back Detrez Newsome. I like Western Carolina in this ball game. The one thing we've seen so far from the Catamounts is that they don't beat themselves, and that's exactly what you need to have happen against an option team. So look for Western Carolina to move on to 5-1 on the season. Over in the Pioneer League, we have Valparaiso traveling to Campbell. Valpo is coming off an impressive victory over Stetson last week, and you have to give a ton of credit to head coach Dave Cicchini for the job he's done with this Crusaders program. They find themselves at 2-3 on the year and in the thick of the Pioneer race. That's what makes this game against Campbell huge. Right now, the Camels sit atop the Pioneer League and are looking like the team to beat. Their ground game has been impressive. Last week versus Morehead State, we saw the Camels have 3 rushers over 100 yards, one of which was quarterback Daniel Smith. I like Campbell in this ballgame. I think they come out and take care of business. The Camels have their eyes set on that automatic bid to the playoffs and are looking to literally run their way to that end result. The Great Danes head down to Richmond for a conference tilt against the Spiders. We haven't seen the Great Danes break out offensively just yet this year. That's what's missing from what we saw last season. I love what they do defensively, which is why they will always have a shot in any ball game. And speaking of defense, that's where you like to see the Spiders make significant strides as the season moves on. Richmond right now is giving up far too many big plays on the ground and also in the air, and that's what cost them the game last week against Elon. Their saving grace is that their offense can score on anybody. That'll be the difference in this ball game. I like Richmond in a back and forth affair against Albany. The Monmouth Hawks will try to continue their dominance over the Patriot League this season as they head up to face Holy Cross. The Hawks have something special brewing this year on the Jersey Shore. They are strong on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They can run the football, and they also have a great quarterback in Kenji Bihar that's playing outstanding situational football. Holy Cross enters this game as one of the best in the Patriot League despite coming off back-to-back losses. Their offense, which started the season off on a great foot, has hit the skids the last 2 weeks. In order for them to have a chance in this ball game, they have to win on first down defensively and disrupt the offensive schedule of the Hawks. I can't see that happening this game against Monmouth. They are too strong in so many key areas. I like the Hawks. It's the State Farm Classic as Grambling State and Prairie View meet up in the Cotton Bowl. The Tigers have quietly gone about their business this season as they're off to a 4-1 start. Quarterback Devontae Kincaid has thrown 5 touchdowns to only 1 interception this year, so his game is already on pace to equal last year's total. This is a huge matchup in the SWAC because the Panthers have been a major thorn in the side of Grambling for the last few years. Prairie View boasts an impressive offensive attack as they're getting stellar play from quarterback Lavelle McCullers. The question I have about the Panthers involves their ability or inability to stop the run. I think ultimately that'll be the biggest key in this ball game. You can't keep giving running backs like Martez Carter more opportunities with the football. I like the Tigers.
And now it's time for the Stats FCS Game of the Week preview between Youngstown State and South Dakota.
Youngstown State defense has been rock solid all season long, and you can make a legit case that they're the best in the FCS. The Penguins are allowing 11 points a game, not allowing double digits in the last 3. Also, they've been getting it done offensively with the punishing ground game led by Tevin McCaster. Their biggest challenge will be keeping Coyotes quarterback Chris Strevler contained in the pocket. The Coyotes are a run-first team as well. Their offensive line has done a masterful job this season blowing people off the ball. I worry about their secondary in this matchup. The Coyotes have been able to outscore teams, but their secondary did show some leakage last week and also against Bowling Green. I like Youngstown State in this ball game. Head coach Bo Pelini has done a great job since arriving in Northeast Ohio, and this year's team looks to be equally as strong as the one that made it to Frisco, Texas last year.
So that's it for this week's episode of the FCS Kickoff. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. If you missed this episode and want to find it again, you can find it archived on our website at footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff. Also, be sure to subscribe on iTunes to the FCS Opening Drive podcast, where me and Dave Hashagen will preview a bunch of other games and other storylines in the FCS this week.